Share the screen.
Yep.
Is that your dog?
No, it's not mine.
I think it was mine.
All right, welcome everybody. We're bringing to order the Energy Committee meeting of July 10th, 2024. We do have a quorum with a number of people in person as well as a number of us online, and Melanie from CCRPC online also, so welcome. First thing is, I don't know if there's anybody out there either in the building or online for public comment. Is there, Melinda?
No.
And before we move to the minutes of the last meeting, I'd like to welcome Michael as a new member of our committee. Thank you for joining us. I've seen at least your title with the town of Stowe. Do you want to say anything to us while you're here and why you joined us?
Sure. No, I currently work for the town of Stowe Electric Department. I run the regulatory legal affairs. So yeah, I'm deep into this world. I don't know what other folks do here, but for the town, I manage, power supply, rebates, PUC filings, our RES component. I used to staff the town energy committee. They've since moved a different employee into that position, so I'm just there on behalf of the utility now. So I have familiarity with this process for the energy committee. When I was in Montpelier, I worked on the DRB Conservation Commission as well. Yeah, I manage the net metering program, our EV chargers. So anyways, excellent.
Well, welcome. So it looks like you've been into a lot of things that we work on. So welcome very much. And so glad to have you join us.
Reed, should we just go around really briefly and introduce ourselves to Mike?
Sure.
Just so he has some idea of who you all are.
Yeah, I'll start. I'm Reed Parker, the current chair of the committee, and the committee's been together for 2.5 years since the town energy plan was originally written, and we have 7 members, and so we all delve into a number of projects, and right now we're in the midst of rewriting the energy chapter of the town energy plan. So that's been our big event for the last several meetings rather, covering multiple months. Matt?
Yeah, I'm Matt Wood. Been on the energy committee since the beginning. I don't know what else to include.
Whatever, sure, you got the floor. Dog story.
I work for the State Agency of Agriculture, so I come from a regulatory angle in that respect, but.
Nice.
And I'm Eric Hellman. I've been on the committee for about a year now, and I work for Vermont Gas.
Nice.
And I'm Melinda Scott, the energy and community development planner for the town of Williston. And how about Kevin Batson?
Hi, I'm Kevin Batson. I've been on the Energy Committee from the start, and it actually was even before that. We were writing the energy plan as a task force. And I was on the Planning Commission for many years, up until about 5 years ago or so. And I'm a retired engineer, electronic though, not. That's all. Good. Welcome.
Thank you.
Kevin Thorley?
All right, Maria?
You think I know how to unmute myself. Hi, Kevin Thorley, the other Kevin. I've been on the energy committee for, I guess, 3 years or since we began. I work for Cox Automotive, and I'm currently out here in Oklahoma City at our EV battery remanufacturing and recycling plant. Most of my work right now with the company is in the EV battery space. Yeah, that's probably about it for me.
And Maria?
I'm Maria Gingras. I've been on the Energy Committee for 3 years now, and I work fully remote for Southwest Power Pool, who is the grid operator in the middle of the country. I'm a market monitor. I'm an economist in environmental science and policy by training, and most of my emphasis has been on wind and renewables, but also more broadly regulatory policy, as I used to work for the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission and the Department of Energy.
And lastly, Melanie.
Hi, I'm Melanie Needle. I am staff at the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission. My title is GIS Data and IT Manager, formerly a senior planner. So I've been transitioning roles at CCRPC for the last couple of months. I helped Williston write their first energy plan in 2019, and here I am again.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you. And again, Michael, welcome. All right, moving on in our agenda, looking at the minutes of June 22nd. Bring those up, please. And if we can roll up. Most of our discussion was on the home energy efficiency and electrification heating requirements. And the election of chair and vice chair, we will discuss tonight. Talked about EV pricing, charger pricing structure, the new one at the community park. We'll also talk about Colchester later tonight. And then we had some other minor things. Any comments on the minutes? Hearing none, do we have a motion to adopt them as presented?
I'll move that.
Thank you, Maria. Anybody second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of adopting the minutes of June 22nd, 2024 as presented, say aye or wave their hands. Aye.
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 Any nays? Any abstentions? Hearing none of those, it has passed. Thank you. Okay. Election of officers. We had a discussion. It's the beginning of July. Every year we have to elect a chair and vice chair. And at our last meeting, I encouraged other members to stand up to the position of chair, which I've held for the last, since we first started a couple of 3 years ago. Is anybody interested in being chair of the committee?
Hey, Reed, I sent Melinda an email that I would be willing to do that.
Thank you. All right, I'd make a motion to appoint Kevin Thorley as chair of the Energy Committee for the next year. I will throw my hat into the ring as vice chair, seeing I've been the chair for a couple of years and I can help out doing that. Anybody else want to be vice chair? No? Is that somebody who would like to be vice chair in the background?
Definitely.
All right, so we have a nomination for Kevin Thorley as chair and Reed Parker as vice chair. Any discussion? Any objections? All those in favor of voting for this ballot say aye.
Is there a second on the
Aye.
motion?
Is there a
Yes.
second on the motion?
I second.
Okay. Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. All right. Any opposed? Any abstained? All right. Thank you, Kevin, for taking on the role. I know you're busy on the road a lot, and I'll be glad to help you out whenever, all of that I can.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you both.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin.
Okay. Now, the big work that we've been doing. Energy plan, we've been working through this for months. We're down to the community energy profile, which Melanie has been our advisor on that and has presented a document. Do you want to bring that up, please, Melinda?
Or Melanie, what would you prefer? Do you want me to share or would you like to share?
I think it makes sense for me to share because I've actually made changes to the document. What I sent to you guys on Friday was marked draft, and Melinda pointed something out in the analysis that caused us to do some changing. So I'm going to share it. Do I have access to share?
You should, yeah, you should have access now.
Okay.
So
Great.
Michael, for your benefit, the town's going through a whole process of rewriting the town plan. And our big chapter of the energy plan has been under revision and development for the last several meetings. And Melanie has been assisting us with a number of items, and this is the guidance for community energy profile. So Melanie, please take this
Yeah.
on. Thank
Are
you.
you guys seeing the memo?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So let me just take a step back and give you guys some background. I know you're familiar with the energy planning standards put out by the Public Service Department that sets the framework for writing an enhanced energy plan. All the data that is in this guide is intended to meet the energy planning standards related to the analysis and targets. And the analysis and targets are intended to provide an overview of energy consumption, so current energy consumption, and then targets for the milestone years that are in the standards for 2025, 2035, and 2050, targets for efficiency, thermal energy, reducing fossil fuels, having more electric vehicles, and then, transitioning the heating sector to heat pumps. So we can dive into the memo as a little bit of overview with the modeling. The Public Service Department worked with a consultant, SEI, I think it's Stockholm Environmental Institute. And SEI ran a series of scenarios. One is a business as usual scenario, modeling if Vermont could meet its Global Warming Solution Act requirements with a business as usual scenario. We know that is not the case. So they ran a climate action plan mitigation scenario, which seeks to demonstrate what the state has to do in terms of technology transformation to meet the state and energy goals that are summarized here. So it's the Global Warming Solution Act, which is in the last bullet, and then transitioning the electric sector to be more renewable, same thing with the transportation sector and energy generation overall. The two areas that we're going to focus on tonight in terms of the LEAP model are residential and transportation. And so I can go over some of the high level assumptions that go into those sectors when we get to the projected targets. So I'm going to scroll down to current energy use and generation. All the data here helps Williston meet Energy Planning Standard 5. So table 1 is an overview of municipal transportation energy use. It's for both year 2021 and year 2022. We decided regionally that our base year for consumption is going to be year 2022 because that is what we had when we began this process in terms of a complete base year. So there's a little bit of a lag. So Williston, according to the Transportation Research Center at UVM, has about 6,600 light duty fossil burning vehicles. And then according to the Drive Electric Vermont information that we get every year as part of a RPC efficiency report, there's 280 light duty vehicles registered to households. And I also want to mention that the 6,600 light duty vehicles in fossil fuels is based on what vehicles are registered to households. So it's not a complete picture, but it's best available data that we have. And then in terms, yep.
Excuse me, it's confusing that it says current municipal transportation, and then it's talking about households. I would think those are two separate entities.
Yeah, I agree. That's confusing. I will fix that. Thank you. It should say, I mean, it in a sense, it means community wide. But I will update that so that it says household. And then table A2 is utilizing American Community Survey data to give you guys a sense of the breakdown of fuel use among homes in Williston. So this is data that you guys have seen before. It is helpful to have this data to kind of validate and ground truth the projections that we are doing in the next section. A majority of the homes are in natural gas. So in a sense, that's easy because we can get some actual data from Vermont Gas, and then 20% of homes are using, or 30% of homes are using delivered fuels. There's a lot of uncertainty with data on that. So you'll see in, subsequent parts, we're not able to provide energy use from delivered fuels, but we have current thermal energy use just from natural gas because we're able to get that easily from Vermont Gas. So 28% of natural gas consumption is associated with residential uses, and 64% of natural gas consumption is associated with commercial uses. And I think that comment that was just made about the municipal natural gas consumption also carries forward into A3. So I will fix that as well.
A question.
Sure.
Number of homes. So like I have a natural gas hookup, but I don't really use it for heating. I have an electric. So am I counted in both those? Because I have a heat pump, which is my primary, and natural gas is just a potential backup.
By both those, do you mean tables A2 and A3?
No, I mean in A2, am I listed, is my home counted under both heating with electricity and natural gas since I have both?
So that's based on survey data. So if you ever did an American Community Survey form, it's based on, self-reported information. So it's hard to say.
No, that's fine. That's a good answer.
So the next table down are residential energy efficiency projects. We get this data from Efficiency Vermont every year. I provided an explanation of what the different efficiency projects are to give you a sense of the progress that municipalities are making for weatherization, installing heat pumps. So I'm not going to go over this in too much more detail. And then annual electricity use, this is reported by the utilities in Williston. So GMP and Vermont Electric Co-op, they report to Efficiency Vermont, and then Efficiency Vermont provides the regional planning commissions with this data. It seems like, 2023 compared to 2020 is a little bit higher. It's hard to say why that is. I could make some assumptions. The residential premise count increased. Average residential usage increased as well. I don't have information on the count of commercial premises, but this gives you, a good picture of what Williston's electricity use looks like in the commercial and residential sectors.
You would want it to go up.
You would want it to go up. Yes, that
Yeah,
is a
I mean,
positive
yeah.
trajectory, as we're electrifying more in these spaces. Yep, so that's good news. So, and then existing renewable energy generation. These are the sites that are physically located in Williston. So your current renewable energy generation is about 35,000 megawatt hours. We split the energy generated by the number 19 dam on the Winooski River because it's half in Williston and half in Essex Junction. And so because of the public service guidance on how to count generation, Williston gets half, Essex Junction gets half. That's how it was done last time around. I think that is the end of section A. Any questions before we go into projected energy use?
Melanie, I think you might have said this. Does that solar include rooftop and grid
Yes,
scale?
it does. Yeah, it's land-based and rooftop in the solar line.
And do we have any idea of a breakdown of residential / commercial rooftop versus I don't know if there's a better word, but I would think of as grid scale.
Good question. The distributed generation data that we get from Public Service Department, I think doesn't differentiate that, but I can double check.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Well,
I mean,
just maybe to restate the question, when you say distributed, you're talking like I guess I'm thinking net metered versus just on the grid as a generating source. I mean, whether the net metering is from a commercial rooftop, residential ground mount, etc.
yeah,
We can
that's
get it,
all
Kevin, if-
combined in here in this table. I can go
Okay.
back to the raw data and see if there's a way to break it out further by type, but I'm not sure that's possible.
Yeah, we can pull it from EPUC. Like Kevin, having that data, what would that do for you?
It's mainly curiosity as we look at that, just to understand when the regional planning commission. So I worked with Melanie on the regional planning commission last summer. I think it was last summer, maybe 2 summers ago.
Yeah, last summer.
And we looked at what's possible, right? So I'm just interested in where we are versus what's possible, because when we looked at what's possible in order to meet, the state guidance, we were looking at rooftop, we were looking at distributed, we were also looking at grid scale installations. So I'm just mainly out of curiosity.
Yeah, and we can talk about what's possible going forward.
Green Mountain Power should have on their website, they'll break down the number of net metering projects. You wouldn't be able to pull it from the PUC because they're not going to know what project was actually built. They'll just have what a CPG was listed for. And then grid scale is going to win over rooftop.
Okay,
Yeah.
I can take a look at that.
Just when I took a look at this data as compared to what we had in the 2020 plan, it seems like there's been a substantial increase in the number of solar sites and in the amount of power. It's something like, I mean, it hasn't like doubled, but I think it's increased by like a third. So that's positive. And then when I looked at the renewable, the PUC's Energy Atlas dashboard, which they maintain now, and it's showing like heat pump adoption. From, I think my interpretation of that map that they have shows that a quarter of the households in Williston have heat pumps. So that was also positive, and it's above the county average.
Yeah, Melinda, the data on that dashboard should align with what we're seeing here
Yep.
in table A4, because it's pulling from the same data resource from Efficiency Vermont. Let me know if I
Yeah.
can check it too. I forgot
Okay.
to check that, but it should be the same.
Mhm.
Okay, sorry for the scrolling. Okay, so projected energy use. This is where we get into the LEAP data that we received from the Public Service Department that satisfies the projected targets. LEAP stands for Low Emissions Analysis Platform. For the purposes of this conversation and the fact that the memo is still kind of draft, we're going to have the projection conversation about residential and transportation sector. And I just want to touch on a little bit more about why this is draft. So we embarked on doing the LEAP municipalization process that we have to do as part of our obligation as a region. So we just did this work. And Williston is kind of our guinea pig. So that's why this is a different version than what you saw in your packet. I apologize for that. We're working out a lot of the bugs in the municipalization tool that the Public Service Department gave us. And so for this evening, I can only talk about residential and transportation because we came up against a significant problem in the commercial sector, and we hope to work with PSD next week to provide you with better data. Okay, so as I mentioned, SEI used LEAP to model the Global Warming Solution Act scenario. In the residential sector, there are a lot of assumptions in all the sectors. There are a lot of assumptions, but it's essentially the number of households projected into the future based on, there's a projection of household growth that's consistent with population growth. So statewide, households in population are annually growing about 0.1% per year. And that is multiplied by the annual energy use per household. There are a lot of assumptions about the categories of housing types. So, and it covers age of housing, type of housing, whether it's single family, attached, detached, apartments, and the share of the household types remain consistent in the residential sector. So, you know, that part of our housing stock is not changing into the future. There are also assumptions built into LEAP about heating load related to heat pumps and how much heating load heat pumps can accommodate for a house. So it ranges from 40 to 60% or even 100% depending upon the heat pump technology. And you won't really see that too much in your data because I've given you a target for just total heat pumps, but just understand that they are accounting for different types of heat pumps Some can take, can accommodate about 40% of the heating load to up to 100%. The model also assumes about 1.3 heat pumps per household. So those are the assumptions that I think kind of make sense to the everyday person. You know, it's a very complex model and there's a lot of assumptions. I believe I provided a link to the documentation about the LEAP modeling if you wanted to get into it a little bit more. And then in the transportation sector, that scenario, the climate action plan mitigation scenario, model stock turnover, so changes in EV technology for different weight classes, from passenger vehicles, light trucks, and then there is a medium and heavy duty component to it that's not available yet, but I hope once I'm able to work things out with the Public Service Department, we can get you that data. So I'm gonna scroll down to table B1 to kind of explain how we arrive at these data. So essentially, the state regionalized the statewide LEAP model and gave the data to the regional planning commissions. And then we have this tool that municipalizes that LEAP data. And so we're able to portray the LEAP data in municipal terms for you, so you can understand what your targets are. So row 1 is an estimate of total light duty vehicles. So that includes both fossil fuels and battery electric and plug-in hybrid electric. The way we are able to estimate future light duty vehicles is based on the growth rate that we estimated for Williston's change in housing. So it's about 2.45%. We came up with that annual growth rate by looking at the change in housing between 2012 and 2022. So that's a picture of how the vehicle stock is going to grow into the future for Williston. And then row 2 and row 3 are essentially LEAP data that was provided to us. So there's a number for the total regional battery electric light duty vehicles, and as well as plug-in hybrid vehicles for the region. And then we municipalize or divide that out for Williston based on Williston's share of regional vehicles, which is about 5.4%. And then row 4 and row 5 are also estimated based on LEAP data municipalized for Williston. So again, using that 5.4%.
Mm-hmm.
So this is Reed, Melanie. So
Yes.
row and 5 are demand. Yes.
Yes.
So 1 is listed as MMBTUs. What is 4? Gallons or BTU? I'm not sure where it goes from 373,000 down to 23,000. What the value is it's being measured.
So yeah, that is also millions. That is MMBTUs as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, good catch.
Okay, so for 2025, comparing lines 1 and 2, that looks like it's less than 5%. And our target is 20 or 10%. So we're missing our target by a whole bunch. Like 300 compared to 7.
Yes.
Or is it, well, for one thing, the 300 is probably included in the 7,481.
Yes,
Yes.
that's correct. Yeah, it's total light duty vehicles.
Yeah.
And currently the number of EVs in Williston, including plug-in hybrid, is 280.
Wow. That's not bad.
So you're not that far off from the 2025 target in
So-
terms of numbers.
It's
So like from
23 loans.
280 to 346.
Right, but it is sort of going right now. It's kind of going like this.
Okay.
Melanie, I have a question.
Sure.
So since this plan will be adopted in 2025, what is the value of having that 2025 target year? Because it'll basically be the current year.
I guess the value is that the energy planning standards say that you have to have it and you need it for
Okay.
your energy determination review.
Okay, well, yeah, it's interesting that they still have that, even given that it's 2024. But I mean, do you think that that's going to be updated within the next year or so, or?
It will
No.
not be updated in the next year. The energy planning standards get updated on the cycle of the Vermont Comprehensive Energy Plan.
Okay,
So we are not going to see another update to the energy planning standards until probably after 2028.
okay,
So,
Yeah.
so to that point, even though we're gonna publish this next year, we should, if we use this data, put, estimates based on prior projections. So that people don't know, read that as being actual.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea to caveat the targets anytime you use them, because so nobody's really, enforcing the targets. They're really intended to show the municipality the magnitude of change and one scenario that could happen in meeting the Global Warming Solution Act. So it's very much just a model. And I mean, it gives you a guidepost or, a milestone along the way to understand if Williston is making progress. I think Williston is making good progress looking at, the numbers here. It's hard to say what's going to happen, going forward. But I guess, it's a projection, kind of take it with a grain of salt. It's definitely not an absolute of like, this is what's going to happen. And we're probably going to lag behind the targets as we've seen in the past.
Yeah, and Mel, just I don't want to belabor things too long, but you use for the growth rate of households. That 2012 to 2022 included a lot of years where there wasn't a lot of development went unused. That was a lot you could build. There were enough allocation to build, and nothing was built like in 2016, and it was really slow time. So I don't see that going forward. It looks like, due to the demographics, you can't build enough. And we do have housing allocations. So you could actually just, what's the maximum, what do we allocate? Like, is it 150 houses, units per year? And that might be a way to check your number, or to,
although Kevin, that's kind of, that allocation number has changed.
Okay.
Because,
Yeah.
yeah, because now, that doesn't include, projects with affordable homes, which basically get allocation like outside of the growth management system. And so that 80 unit per year cap only applies to projects that go through growth management, but there will be other projects that are outside of that. So the number will actually probably be larger, but that with a caveat that we're not seeing any building right now and haven't for really for a couple of years. Building is really stalled.
Really?
Yeah, due to, the cost issues and labor shortages and a lot of things.
Oh, okay.
So we kind of expect that things could be slow even, I don't know, even in the near future, it's kind of unpredictable, but I think the assumption of using that 2.45% growth rate is probably as good as we're gonna get in
Yep.
terms of trying to estimate.
Yep, okay, sounds good.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that this growth rate may not exactly align with what Williston is planning for. I think that's probably best explained in a narrative, just so that the reader understands, that this is just for modeling purposes. And we're trying to keep the methodology for estimating the annual growth rate for each municipality consistent, because this all needs to roll up to the regional level so that it aligns with our ECOS plan. So I know it's not an exact representation of Williston, and things may change going forward as the Regional Planning Commission starts to talk to Williston about housing targets and such. But so I think, talking about that in the narrative certainly makes sense.
Sorry for the distraction.
Melanie, two quick questions, and the
Sure.
answer might be that you can just tell me to go read like the LEAP documentation. Do you know what kind of assumptions we made about growth rate for new EV sales as a percentage of internal combustion sales, and also the rate of retirement of existing vehicles?
Yeah, so
I'm
there
just trying
were,
to like make sense out of like the kind of the curves that we see here between like 2025 and
I think that
2035.
is going to be embedded in the LEAP documentation, and I can
Okay.
try and pull that out. I mean, there was definitely a statewide assumption that was applied to model, the number of EVs going into the future, but I don't know what that is off the top of my head. And yeah, I think it's probably buried in there because I've read it a number of times now, and I'm not able to pull a number out of my head, so I can pull
Okay.
that for you.
I can just go look at the docs as well. And then similar for line 5 is I guess that's a question of efficiency and energy use of an EV. That's all just, that's not numbers that you all put in. That's part of the LEAP modeling.
Yeah, line 5 is a LEAP number that we got, and then we municipalized it by 5.4%, because that's Williston's share of the regional light duty vehicles in Chittenden County.
Interesting. Okay.
So that's the
And then
factor
just a
that
heads
we're
up,
using.
I do need to drop at 1:30. So Monday, I think we still have quorum if I do that though, right? In case there's a
Yeah.
vote on the
Yes,
Colchester.
there is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
So this is Reed. I have a question.
Sure.
So looking at the first line, total light duty vehicles, we're about 7,500 now and projecting in 25 years to go to almost 14,000. And then the EVs are going to about offset the total number of vehicles we have now. That means that we're still projecting 6,000 almost non-electric vehicles. Is that correct? In growth over that 25 years in the town?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Because then you're assuming also in line 3 that the plug-in hybrid electric market dies out over that
right, because they're
25
not,
years.
yeah, they're not projecting that many.
Even though we still have 6,000 non-electric vehicles on the road. It's just interesting the way the modeling came out, because if you're going to have that many, I would have assumed there'd be at least a growth in plug-in hybrids.
Yeah, I agree with you, Reed.
But I'm not going to argue the numbers other than that it just looked odd. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Right.
as I said, like, it's a draft, and these questions about whether they make, logical sense are really helpful, because there's so many numbers. I don't even want to show you the spreadsheets.
Yeah.
But so having, like, what Melinda mentioned, last week about I think it was wood heat. So just having those questions about ground truthing help me to improve the model and the municipalization. So I will take another look at that because I agree that 57% seems low, given that the last time around we were up to like 89%. So, this is definitely not a perfect situation, and things are going to change based on some of the questions that you guys are asking.
But
Right, because
that
And
charging,
you-
that depends on charging infrastructure. So, there's a lot of apartments in Williston and buildings that don't have, easy hookups. So I don't, I would hope not, but unless charging infrastructure improves, that could be the reality.
yeah, but Kevin, I think another way to phrase what Reed was saying, or another angle to look at it from, if we make some assumptions about what the auto industry is saying they're doing by 2035 and commitments which might be walked back, but made by the likes of GM and Ford and others about being primarily EV, sales being primarily electric vehicles by 2035. The numbers here would imply that even if most vehicles are electric by 2035, as we expect, we still have 15 years past that, we still have 6,000 gas cars on the road. So I'm just kind of looking at it from that perspective, like what the auto industry is telling us, what we're seeing. Melanie, I can send you some work my company's done on just like general consumer trends, like where we think we're gonna be, but kind of working backwards. This number is saying 6,000, right? Yeah, 6,000 gas vehicles, 15 years after the vast majority of new car sales are expected to be electric. And Kevin, to your point, I hope with every ounce of my being that 25 years in the future, we're not talking about charging at apartments and condos anymore. I'm hoping, we solve that in the next 10 years.
Yeah, thank you for that context. And so I guess the takeaway from table point B1 is, you can see in row 4, the amount of fossil fuel energy is substantially decreasing. It goes from 373,000 MMBTUs down to about 23,000 MMBTUs, and the amount of electrification in the transportation sector is increasing. I still need to do some work on figuring out what row 4 means in terms of the number of fossil fuel vehicles that are being modeled for Williston. So I'll get back to you. It's still kind of a work in progress.
yeah, because that line bothers me, because if you're using 373,000 right now for 7,000 vehicles, and you get 6,000 25 years from now, how did it drop to 23,000 if you're still burning fossil fuels? I just don't see the correlation there.
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
looks like
I agree with
there is
that.
something awry.
Yeah, I'm sorry I don't have better answers, but
No, that's all right. That's why we're
it'll
here.
happen.
And is line 3 accurate? 46 plug-in hybrids in the area? Is that what that means? Estimate for the number of area plug-in?
Here.
Yeah, it's an estimate of the target and what the vehicle fleet mix is going to be in 2025. And again, it's a number in LEAP that we were provided by the state, and then we just divided it out by Williston's share of the regional vehicles. So you're essentially getting like 5% of the plug-in hybrid electric vehicles that were attributed to Chittenden County in 2025.
So low numbers, goodness.
Yeah, low numbers.
Getting lower.
Okay, so I think moving on. So table B2, we're still working through the commercial sector. I'll have some answers for you soon. So we're just going to skip over that one. And now we are in the residential sector. let me just get my notes. Okay, so again, like row one kind of does the same thing that I explained with electric vehicles, using that 2.45% growth rate, applying it to what we know the total quantity for Williston housing stock is today, and then projecting that 2.45 annual rate into the future. So that gives us about 5,000 homes in Williston in 2050. And then row two is demonstrating how residential thermal energy use is going to decrease because of thermal efficiency improvements from weatherization. And so row three is how much energy is going to be saved or avoided because of weatherization improvements. And then that is apportioned out by the number of homes. And so then row four is telling you the number of homes that need to be weatherized to save the energy that is estimated in row three.
Can I ask you a question about that, though?
Sure.
I mean, that's a huge number for thermal energy use. And I'm wondering if it also depends on line 8, because it says percent of residences using heat pumps, which I think would have a bigger impact on that number than weatherization. Is that also the case? Because it looks like we're going from 24% up to 91% using heat pumps.
Yes, the efficiency of heat pumps does play a role in the amount of heat energy that is saved in row three. So it's essentially.
Wait, so no, well, okay, so clarify this. On line 2, it's an MMBTUs. Are you using that to both talk about, that's just output, so that's from electric or from natural gas or wood or any heating source?
It is, yeah, it is from any heating source.
Okay, that clarifies it then. I was assuming using MMBTU, that's like the output, it's not like the input. It's not MMBTUs of fuel. It's
Yeah,
MMBTUs of output. Okay.
Yeah, so I think a way to think about this is the thermal envelope is getting more efficient because of heat pump technology and also weatherization, and then other thermal efficiency improvements that the model says, but they don't really describe those thermal efficiency improvements are. But they are saying that between 23 and 75% of homes need to be weatherized to help save the amount of energy that is in row 3. But there is some calculation that does take into effect the ultra efficiency of heat pumps.
Melanie, I've got a question.
Sure.
About the projected number of future residences. That number for 2050 seems really low to me. If you apply a annual growth rate of 2.45%, and multiply that by the 25 years.
Okay.
So yeah,
I
so just
will look at it.
maybe double check that.
Yeah, I'll double check that.
Yeah, only 800 more homes by 2040.
I mean, for example, are in the it is vastly different from the target number of homes that was ascribed to Williston in the the thing that PAC was working on. Without getting into the numbers, because I know
Yes.
it's just
Yeah.
vastly different.
Yeah, it's one's coming from the legislature and the other one's coming from the public service department, and they're not always talking to each other. But I see your point, and I will check on whether there's something going on with the formulas.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so where we are at, I guess we could jump down to row 6. So again, row 6 is one of the, is a LEAP data estimate that we then municipalize based on Williston's share of housing, which is about 5.8%. And then row 7 estimates the number of residents using heat pumps. So it's that number above, and then, oh no, sorry, I apologize. Row 7 is also, we're given the number of heat pumps that need to be installed for Chittenden County. So then we take that number and municipalize it for Williston. And then row 8 is comparing row 1 to row 7 to give you a sense on what percent of the residents need to be using heat pumps into the future.
Okay, so that's not a projection, because I was going to say 91% seems, unless natural gas gets very expensive. I'm wondering how realistic 91% is, but if that's like what we need and not what's projected, then that makes sense.
Well, isn't that
yeah,
same
I mean,
thing?
it's a projection of what is needed so that Williston is doing their part to advance the Global Warming Solution Act. So this is what the heating technology needs to look like in Williston under this scenario.
Yeah, I keep thinking of projection as what we think is actually going to happen, because when you started talking about the number of residences as the projected number of future residences, then I get confused that that's a projection versus the other numbers are what we need, projected what we need to meet the policy.
Yeah, so it's like projected is like, what you think will happen. Think of the other things as targets. So
Yep.
Targeted, yeah. That's the way.
Yeah, so the only real projection is the number of homes and what that accounts for all of Chittenden County. And so what we would need, all the other numbers are then based on those numbers, what would we need to do to meet the target? I gotcha.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Think about them as targets and not necessarily projections. Okay, so jumping down to row 9, it's another LEAP data that's municipalized for Williston, based on 5.8%. And then we do an estimate of the residents using wood heat based on the heating load for houses. So that's where we get like 73 for 2025, 60 for 2035, and 49 for 2050. And then row 11 is a little bit of a different approach that we took, because what we got initially was not making any sense. And that's what Melinda had pointed out, because it was estimating that, Williston is at 2% of homes using wood, and then it was increasing and then decreasing again. So we kind of scrapped that approach, and are using what the ACS home heating fuel percentages say for wood and the other fuel types, and municipalizing row 9 based on the number of homes in Williston that use heat compared to the regional total. So essentially what we're saying in Williston is that less heat energy is being used to heat homes. It's currently around 2%, and it'll drop down to 1% as people make the switch to heat pumps.
Melanie, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Understanding that you put a ton of work into all this and it's great, but if I'm just an average resident and I want to know what Williston is supposed to be doing or what we're targeted to do, like, is there another way to convey this information? And I'm thinking of what like Energy Action Network puts out every year, because this is like, I mean, this is kind of nuts, right? If you're just an average person, you want to do your part, where do I fit into the mix? And you open this up and you look at all this stuff, I mean, I guarantee you're not getting past row 2. And so I'm just wondering, is there a way to convey this information, whether it's a chart or a graph that shows people that this is aspirational, like we need to get there eventually. This is where we're at now, and this is our roadmap to get there. Because like, to me, this just is not aspirational for anyone in the general public to look at this. And I'm someone who has to do this for the utility. And I know I turn everyone off with walls of data, and it's just not effective. So I'm just wondering if other towns have done something to make this digestible in a simpler way.
I'm trying to think of an example, and you're not wrong. I mean, it's very dense. It's very hard to work with. It's not user friendly. I think that there is an opportunity to do some narrative about where Williston is currently and where Williston is going in the plan. And I would sort of defer to Melinda on how she portrays the target in comparison to where Williston is now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that my understanding is we're sort of required, in order to meet the standards, we're required to have this table in our plan, but we could also either within this plan or somewhere else make it simpler and make it more user friendly and
Like
graphical.
bury this all in an appendix at the end and just have
Well,
you know what I mean? Like
you can do that too.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I
like,
mean,
we just need to check boxes to have, Melanie's work. And I mean, not to say that your work should only be in an appendix, but I just think if you look at this, like, because a lot of this is going to be dictated by elements that are out of our control, right? The automobile sector, Efficiency Vermont, GMP. And I feel like we want to be additive and inspirational. You open this up, and I mean, like, Green Mountain Power's IRP is like hundreds of pages. Like, no one's reading that.
Yeah.
And I think,
well, I think that's something that we talk about a lot is like we have a lot of goals in our energy plan, but then how do we do the appropriate outreach to make sure that we can actually meet those goals? And so I think that's kind of the crux of our role in the energy committee to an extent, is figuring out how to translate the energy plan, including these things, into action items that we can actually engage the public on, whether it be weatherization and doing window dressers, or doing our EV events to get people more interested in buying an EV or something like that. So I think it's up to us to interpret what these are and then figure out a way to engage with the public on them.
But I totally see I see where you're coming from. And I agree that having it be user friendly is important. I mean, if we can still meet the standards, I would put the tables in an appendix, refer to them in the plan, and just like call out some key graphics to kind of illustrate the main kind of takeaways from this. And we can definitely do that if we can still like meet our requirements that way, we can definitely do that.
yeah,
I agree with that approach. Many municipalities have put the data in an appendix because it's very dense and hard to understand. Another idea, and I think the Williston Energy Plan currently already does this. For example, you can take, if in the policies that you have around weatherization that talk about education and taking advantage of Vermont Gas's programs, in that section where you're talking about weatherization, you could say, like, do these X, Y, and Z implementation steps to achieve 75% of residences weatherized by 2050. So what you would be doing with that is you're connecting the target to the implementation actions that we hope will get us to 75% weatherized.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the other thing is that. So the enhanced energy plan is like a very sort of dense, pretty long document. There's also gonna be a shortened energy chapter in the town's comprehensive plan, which is, again, gonna be renewed in 2025. So in that chapter, we can totally condense and summarize, just put the high points of this energy plan in there and put some key graphics that people can understand in that chapter, and then just say, if you want to dive deeper, or you want more information, here's go look at the enhanced energy plan. And in this plan, again, in the body of the text, we can have key points and say, for more information, see table B3 in the appendix or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds good. So that ends what I wanted to talk about on the energy profile. I think I only had till 7:30, so I apologize for going over. And I appreciate you guys, kind of poking holes in this and making sure that it makes common sense, because those are the questions that we need. And there'll be another draft of this once we get our questions answered by the Public Service Department. I'm meeting with them on Monday, so hope to have additional information for you guys by like end of next week. Definitely before you guys are you meeting again in July?
Yes,
Yeah.
in 2 weeks.
Okay. I think that we could provide another draft for you guys and attend that meeting. Is it the 25th?
24th.
24th. Okay. Yeah, so if you have time on your agenda to do this, to have a conversation about this again, that works for us, or I can come back in August.
No, we will put it on the agenda.
Okay.
This is what we've been doing for months and months, so we do want to go through this. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and as I'll send this version to Melinda, because I made changes today, so you don't have this version. So if other questions come up, just send me an email.
Yeah.
Melanie,
Thank you.
before you go, just, is it the LEAP model that defines sort of the different goals we're going for here? I think about like weatherization, and those are big numbers for a town that has a fairly new housing stock, whereas Barry, or Springfield have much older housing stocks and might have more to gain with weatherization. So I wonder about, like, who's determining, like, we might be better off investing in other things other than weatherization, if you know what I mean, right? Whereas another town that has a different kind of housing stock or different characteristics might be better off investing in some other part of it. But is it the LEAP model that defines how this is broken down? I mean, it's very generalized, obviously, but it just doesn't seem very fit to the community necessarily.
It is the LEAP model. There's assumptions on the housing stock in terms of what type of housing it is, either single family, apartment. I think there's like 16 different types that are in the model. And it also takes into consideration the age of the housing stock. So the model is ran at the state level and then regionalized for Chittenden County, and then again divided out for municipalities. And so that number that you see, for example, in row 3, is the amount of energy that the LEAP model is saying that Williston is responsible for saving as a result of weatherization. There's so many other factors and assumptions that are baked into the model to get that number. So I think just making sure in the plan, there's some, caveat language that it's really just a scenario and a way to understand in terms of magnitude what things need to change. So
Hmm.
it's very imperfect. I apologize.
Mhm.
Your
Thanks.
implementation pathways and the education and the policies that you do in town, in my mind, for an enhanced energy plan are what really matter. And the targets, I know this is not a great answer, but the targets, yes, they give us an idea of where we're going, but they're needed to satisfy the standards. And like I said, like the pathways and the policies that Williston adopts are what is the most important part of this process, I think.
Yeah.
All right, well, thanks, guys, and I'll be in touch soon with another draft.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Melanie.
Melanie.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, thanks. I'm gonna sign off. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Okay,
Did,
take care.
Mhm.
did Kevin Thorley drop off? Yeah, I know he said he had something at 7:30.
Yeah, he dropped off.
Okay, all right. Well then, I'll continue on. Were there any other comments about where we were? Because Michael, to your point, every other line I was having trouble with because it seemed to contest it, and then if the general public's trying to read it, they could get lost really easily.
Yeah, no, I think, I just know from my perspective, like my own energy committee hasn't read the 2 IRPs that I've drafted for the town of
Yeah.
Stowe.
Yeah.
Because they open up a 200-page document. It's just like, what is, and a lot of it is checking boxes.
Yeah.
But that doesn't
Yeah. I mean, I think that
like inspire anyone.
I think that we can work together to kind of figure out what those key metrics are that you want to show, and then I can, kind of work on something and show it to you, and then you can figure it out.
Yeah, because I've been flipping through our current plan, the 2018 plan and our 2020 plan. And we took what Melanie gave us several years ago and wrote narratives around it, but then that became the community profile. And so it's a lot of just
So
data.
this is the plan, and there's a lot of tables in there.
It's the same tables basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. She didn't even get to the renewable energy generation part of it too, but I guess we can talk about that later. But yeah, it's a lot for sure. So yeah, like putting the tables in an appendix might be a good idea. And then just showing what's the most important thing that people need to know. Yeah.
Any other thoughts before we move on? It's we've got a couple of other things. All right, Colchester Net Metering Partnership, an item we tabled from last time. So the town of Colchester, I think, is offering other municipalities the potential to join them in net metering. Is that the essence of it, Melinda?
Yeah, so the essence is that they would like to produce more energy to meet their targets, meet their goals for renewable energy generation. But right now they're exceeding the 500 kilowatt limit that's imposed by the PUC for net metering. And so they want some other towns to basically be like, how do you say, to be off takers of some of that energy that's being produced, so that they can stay below their cap, but still try to meet their goals for renewable energy generation. And basically the benefit to the town of Williston, were it to partner with them on this, is, and from what it sounds like in this letter, the town would get 10% off their electricity, 10% reduction in their electricity costs. It wouldn't amount to that much money over a period of time, but it's something. I think they do a breakdown of like per system. It'd be like for if you were to partner with them on just one of these things, it would be like $2,500 a year that you'd save on electricity costs, and over a 20-year period, 51,000 and something. What popped into my mind is that if Williston were to partner with them on this, it wouldn't reduce our town's capacity to still produce renewable energy. And it would perhaps, give us a source of money for a revolving loan fund that we were talking about for energy projects. Maybe the savings from this could go into an energy revolving loan fund and build over time. So those are my thoughts on it. And a caveat that they sent this out a while ago, and I believe we had to table this a couple times, so there may have already been another town that's like called them up right away and said, hey, we want to partner with you on this. So that it may be an opportunity that's passed, but it may also arise in the future. So just in general, might be good to kind of consider this option.
So what this means is that we would, you're saying we could still do our own separate net metering, or we would?
Yes, so
All we're doing is just taking electricity from them so they can say, oh, it's not net metered.
well,
It would be net metered for them.
Yeah.
So we would be giving them 90% of the credits back. We would retain 10% of the credits.
Yeah.
That would come off the town, somehow the town's bills. They must have worked this out with GMP,
yeah, it's similar to like how it worked with
community solar.
with iSun, with the DPW garage array when we were just leasing space to iSun, and we had a net metering agreement with them. It's like pretty much the exact same arrangement. They basically sold us the electricity at a 10% discount.
Yeah.
So
They
it worked
took
the
the
same
reps.
way.
But you said, Melinda, Colchester owns the system.
Right.
So we
Right.
don't have to be the investor. We're
No,
just paying, and it doesn't count against our 500 kilowatt cap.
no,
Because we discussed that in an earlier meeting, and whether that was by site or by town, and I think it came back that's by town, right? The
well,
whole municipality has that as a
apparently
cap.
it's per customer. That's what, well,
Yes.
that's what they're saying. So they must have, done their research on this. And
they would be the customer, and we're just a user of the electricity.
right, we're not generating that electricity. We would just be sold that electricity at a
Yeah.
reduced price.
So I don't see the downside, really.
Yeah, I mean,
Still on the table, we should do it.
yeah, so I think, the reason, I mean, if the town were to do this, it would be a select board decision, and the select board would want to know that the energy committee is weighed in. And so that's why this is in front of you. And if maybe you could vote on whether you're in support of this or not. And then I can take that information to Eric and the select board if it's still on the table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So would
So I don't-
would a kind of ammunition for getting this through the select board to be if we did not just present it pure on dollars, because they'd look at 2,500 a year and go, well, that's 200 a month. That's or $200 a month. That's not really worth it. Or do we say, but that we would use that 2,500, like you say, for a revolving loan of fund, which we've talked about, which is also not for town projects, doesn't really reduce budgetary costs, but gets people to do other things in the municipality on the town base, for things for in-town buildings and so on.
I mean, the way I see it, it's like basically money the town could get without, without really having to do anything other than, a little bit of extra accounting. But it would be just an additional source of potential funding for revolving loan fund, and who knows whether the select board would be in favor of that, but I don't know. I think that you could make that argument that it's not costing the town anything and it'd be additional, source of funding for that.
Will we have to pay lawyers? Could that eat up the first year?
Ha! Probably.
And the extra accounting would cost us more than $2,500. So.
Get a lawyer involved.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I don't particularly see the benefit in doing this. I think the benefit flows to Colchester, which isn't really doing much for us. It doesn't reduce our bills. It doesn't provide any low or moderate income folk opportunity to participate in solar. There will be a number of solar opportunities coming up with Solar for All that Bernie Sanders got through, which we may be able to take advantage of. To me, it seems like a lot of work to benefit what's a Colchester target and not a Williston target.
Mm-hmm.
And then, net metering, it does transfer costs between those who can participate in net metering and those who can't.
Yeah, it does. It's the bottom line isn't very big.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a lot of effort for.
Yeah, as Kevin pointed out, the lawyer would eat up more than that. It could cost us twice that for lawyers' fees just to draw up an agreement or more.
But then you're getting the benefit over, 20 years or more.
Assuming the panels are producing and.
Wouldn't
Right.
Colchester be the one to draw up the agreement? I mean, we would need to review it.
Right, you need a lawyer to probably, I'm sure you'd need a lawyer to review it, but,
Do we have a town attorney?
we do, yeah. And so it's,
So that's in-house costs.
yeah, to me, it's not really
I
a
don't
heavy
think
lift.
I don't think the attorney is better than issue. Green Mountain Power is gonna have that all sorted out already.
Yeah,
What are we really gonna tell them? We're not gonna negotiate different terms for this,
right,
Yeah. I just think it allows Colchester to say they're getting greener, and what does it really do for us? I mean, it's good neighbor. There's some good neighbor participation there, but.
Yeah, fiscally, I don't know if these numbers, I wouldn't know whether these numbers are significant or not. Or if it's in the mud.
yeah,
And that would be the only objection I'd have if it's not worth it
mhm.
to us. But I think maybe we could, we could say that we don't really see a downside to the select board and pass it on to them to make the decision, because they're the ones who really control the purse.
Well, I think that it wouldn't, I don't think this would move forward without, at least the support of the committee. I mean, I don't think it's worth bringing to the select board unless the committee strongly supports it.
Yeah,
So
it's kind of like the solar one we did for DPW. I mean, we spent a lot of time doing analysis and wrote up our proposal for that one because we felt strongly that that was a good thing to do. Even though that wasn't a huge moneymaker, it seemed in my mind, more attractive than this one.
Well, for that one, you were essentially taking this situation and buying the solar, so.
Yes, but we still had to buy it and then look at the long-term payback, which we thought,
Right, correct, yeah,
what, to the opinions I've
Yeah.
heard here, is actually a Williston target, a benefit to Williston.
yeah. Mhm. So it sounds like there's not really a lot of support for this, from what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I like the revolving fund idea, but it's really not gonna contribute that much to that either.
Yeah,
Mhm. Do we need to officially take a vote of support or non-support?
well, I mean, I think if you're, it sounds like I'm not hearing like a general support, so, if you guys wanna just informally, I mean, you don't necessarily need to take a vote unless you're, unless you're supporting this and wanna move it on. If not, I'd say just drop it.
Okay. Any further discussion? Maria, are you still with us?
Should we drop that?
Oh, hold on. Yep, I was on mute.
I know, any thoughts on this one?
No, I'm in agreement. I wasn't gonna just add more of the same to the discussion, but
Okay.
it is very tempting because I like the revolving loan fund, but I think there are other ways that we can probably fund that without and internalize the benefits as well more.
Okay.
I'm not necessarily against it. I just think there are probably better ways, just like everyone
Yeah.
else has been saying.
Right.
But what are those other ways? I mean, I'm not putting you on the spot. I'm just like, are there, this is, I mean, 2,500 a year. That's like, it would take 5 years to get, my solar array that I have on the roof, right? That's
Mhm.
Yeah.
10 years to get one house set up with
Right.
solar.
Right.
Yeah,
So in other words, it's in your opinion, Kevin, it's not enough money.
I think that might be the crux of it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Well, we're only getting 10% of the
right.
benefit.
Right.
so.
Yeah, they're looking at it as if we went back and said, no, we'll take 25%, then it becomes more, but I don't think they'll offer it to us. So
Where'd they come up with 10% numbers?
I think
That's-
it's
That's pretty
arbitrary.
typical.
What is it?
Yeah, I think
That's what you would
that's,
see in like a merchant contract.
yeah,
Well, hearing no great support, I think we can drop this.
okay. I'll move
Right.
on.
It is 2 minutes of 8. 1 minute of 8. Under other business, well, unfortunately, Kevin Thorley dropped off, and the next 2 items were his. I'll
Okay.
have to ask him whether he has started drafting an article because we missed last month. Otherwise, if he isn't and he's traveling a lot, we'll have to figure out how we're going to write another article for the Observer. And the same with the Isham Farm. I don't know whether he got hold of Mike or not. Champlain Valley Fair participation, do we have new information, or did Essex write to us, or it's...
Yeah, Essex contacted me a while ago and I've been forgetting to put this on the agenda, but they're looking for, again, other towns to participate with them in the Champlain Valley Fair table. They'd like to increase the participation from last year. They want to try to do all 10 days. So they're looking for not only within Chittenden County, but outside Chittenden County partners. So they asked me if I would ask, they asked me to ask you whether you'd be interested in participating like we did last year.
What are the dates?
I don't know what the dates are.
It runs late August through Labor Day.
Yeah,
The 10 days that
Right.
end up finishing on Labor Day.
So it basically for those that were not here last year. There's a table that's set up at the Champlain Valley Fair in one of the big exhibition buildings, and the Essex Energy Committee kind of organized the whole thing and organized a spreadsheet, and so members of various energy committees could sign up on the spreadsheet for different shifts that they wanted to participate in, and Essex just wants to get some idea of the level of likely participation and commitment from energy committees so that they can decide whether or not to move forward on this, and that's why
So
they're.
this is just like pick an hour one day and hang out at the table?
It's
Is that
like-
basically what they're asking?
It's like a 4-hour shift.
It's a 4-hour shift.
Well, you almost had me.
Yeah,
But it's fun.
a bunch of us did it. You get to talk to a lot of people.
That sounds like a great thing.
Efficiency Vermont gave us a lot of material to hand out, and so it was a booth in the Big Miller building. So you're in there with all the other commercial vendors.
You
and
also get
everybody.
free tickets to the fair, or a free
Yes.
ticket. So
Yes.
Yeah.
that was the incentive,
Yeah.
right?
I don't know, I did it, my shift last year, I spent a lot of time talking to people from outside Vermont.
Oh,
Yeah.
hmm.
If our goal is to educate or reach out to Willistonians, this is not the venue for us. That's my opinion.
That would be what I would
Seemed
think
like a
too.
waste of time to me for the effort. But if you want to, meet with and work with other energy committees, it's a good way to do that because it is people from around the region,
Mhm.
I did talk to other people in the booth that were interesting, but
Mhm.
Mhm.
the crowd at the fair was a lot of out-of-staters from what I found.
Mhm.
Huh, interesting. I didn't have that same experience.
Hmm.
I mean, the people that I spoke with were not from Williston, but they were from other parts of the state.
Hmm.
And what are we committing to? Just showing up one shift? Are
Um,
we committing to every day we're gonna staff?
no, I think it's more of I think that you're not committing to every day, but you're committing to like, more than one shift, and it's like, it's hard to really kind of put a definite number on it, but I think generally that, more than one person from the energy committee would participate, you do like a few shifts.
A few
Or
shifts
just-
in total, but not necessarily each
total, yeah.
person. Because
Right, yeah.
last year Essex struggled to get enough people to fill 5
The-
days of the
yeah.
10 days.
So,
And so they're being very ambitious to try and get the whole 10 days.
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, you could, one thing you could do is just kind of decide who is interested in participating and say, like, figure that, each person who wants to participate does one shift. And then you could just tell the Essex committee, this is what we can offer, or this is what we're willing to offer. Or you decide it's not, we're not interested at all, and
Yeah.
keep it at that.
We have spent so much time on this energy plan. We really haven't done a lot of public outreach this year.
We bring a lot of tables.
Yeah.
Locally, we usually do our EV energy fair and the farmers markets, and and we just haven't had that opportunity to Matt's point. Maybe we need to pull in and do more things that talk to the people in Williston.
And the other thing that you should probably discuss at the next meeting is whether you're gonna have an energy fair this year, because that is
Yes.
coming up.
It will come very soon if we
Yeah.
do one in September. Yep,
Yeah,
September or early October.
yeah.
Yeah, I'd rather do that than. Cause that's just gonna be a month later, basically. We need to spool back up and.
Yeah.
Right, right.
Mhm.
I agree.
It's been raining.
Okay, so
Okay.
Man, we're saying a lot of no's
it
tonight.
sounds like, it sounds like there's not a great deal of support for the Champlain Valley Fair.
I mean,
No,
I'll commit to 2 hours, but that
Okay.
doesn't sound like it's what they're looking for.
Yeah.
no,
Right.
it was, they were guaranteeing they were there. See, the people who run the fair wanted to guarantee that you'd be there all 10 days for as many hours as the fair was open. So that was like 12 hours of shifts per day, and they just couldn't staff it. And so it was a hard time.
Yeah.
All right, folks, we are at 6 minutes over. Is there any other last comments?
There's energy, renewable energy generation siting course that's free on MIT online. I'll send out an email to everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I just wanted to let you know that the select board will be considering, the clean heat standard petition at their meeting next week, which is July 16th. So, feel free to come if you'd like. And I will also let Sustainable Williston members know about that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Right, if there's nothing else, I think we are adjourned at 8:07. Thank you all very much.
Thank
And
you.
And it's pouring out. Hope you all brought raincoats.
Great.
Stay dry.
Yeah, good night.
Good night.
See ya.